I don't see any change in Washington now in the foreseeable future, unless the Russians retaliate very strongly against us in Eastern Europe. And I'm talking about, as I said before, these key areas, logistical sites, airports, and so forth, even logistical nets that depend on rail. We've been dragging Europe into this war from day one. The Europeans now have second thoughts. They're scared. And in fact, behind this facade of solidarity, things are falling apart. Why do you think Schultz spoke and said what he did? Everybody else in Europe nodded their heads. No, we are not invading Russia. It's not going to happen. We're the ones that continue to provoke. We're the ones that are continuing to maintain, with British help, this corrupt puppet regime in Kiev, whose only mission in life is to either sacrifice as many Ukrainians as possible and to do as much damage as they can to Russia. And frankly, they haven't done much damage at all. Today it was announced that Russia has officially become, I think, the fifth largest economy in the world after Japan. Gosh, what a huge achievement for the Biden administration and his friends and stupid supporters in both parties sitting in Congress. They've made Russia a superpower again.
In the past 24 hours, a significant development has unfolded that will answer many of your pressing questions. Today we delve into the prisoner exchange at the Sui border. Both sides exchanged approximately 90 prisoners each, marking the first such occurrence in a long while. As Colonel Douglas Macgregor has often emphasized, understanding these exchanges is crucial to grasping the broader strategic landscape. This development carries profound implications for the conflict. In a surprising move, Russia and Ukraine have recently engaged in a prisoner exchange, each side returning 90 prisoners. Now, why did this happen? Ukraine had been demanding a 1-to-2 exchange ratio, 90 Ukrainian prisoners for 180 Russians. But Russia, rightly dismissing such demands, insisted on an equal 1-to-1 exchange, highlighting Ukraine's inflated sense of military superiority. Ukraine's insistence on a 1-to-2 ratio stems from their dire situation. They have significantly more prisoners in Russian hands, around 600 Ukrainians for every 90 Russians. This stark disparity exposes the true toll of the conflict on Ukrainian forces and their desperate attempts to reclaim more soldiers. This exchange isn't just a tactical maneuver, it's a strategic signal. The fact that Ukraine finally agreed to a 1-to-1 ratio after such a long delay indicates a shift in their position, likely driven by mounting pressures and dwindling options. Russia's steadfast approach underscores their upper hand in negotiations and their larger stockpile of Ukrainian prisoners, which has been steadily growing. The human element in sides. Let's now explore the casualty ratios and what they reveal about the battlefield dynamics. As Colonel Douglas Macgregor has noted in his analysis, understanding casualty ratios is key to understanding the strategic outcomes of battles. President Putin has previously mentioned casualty ratios ranging from 7-to-1 to 10-to-1, depending on the battle and timing. The recent prisoner exchanges and casualty data support these figures. The ratio of exchanged prisoners and casualties is consistently high, aligning closely with Russia's estimates. Western media outlets like the New York Times and BBC have claimed near 1 million Russian casualties. If true, this would imply Ukrainian losses nearing 10 million, a ludicrous figure given their current military capabilities and mobilization efforts. These exaggerated claims are nothing more than propaganda. Let's delve deeper into the tactics that have led to such high casualty ratios. During the K campaign, for instance, Ukrainian forces suffered devastating losses due to superior Russian strategy and firepower. The actual on-ground dynamics reveal that Ukrainian troops are often outmaneuvered and outgunned, contributing to the disproportionate casualty figures. Moreover, the terrain and urban warfare have played significant roles. Russian forces have expertly utilized the geography to their advantage, executing precise strikes and maintaining strong defensive positions. These factors, combined with superior intelligence and logistical support, have resulted in Ukraine's staggering losses. Experts agree that these casualty numbers are not just a reflection of battlefield losses, but also of strategic depth. Russia's ability to sustain such operations while maintaining lower casualty rates demonstrates a significant advantage in terms of resources, planning, and execution. Historical comparisons further illustrate the severity of these casualty ratios. In previous conflicts, similar imbalances have often indicated a turning point or a shift in momentum. The current figures suggest that Ukraine is struggling to maintain its fighting capability while Russia continues to leverage its strategic advantages. Now let's examine the implications of these casualty figures on the current state of the conflict and societal impacts within Ukraine. Colonel Douglas Macgregor has pointed out the critical importance of understanding the societal impacts of war. In recent days, we've seen a surge in civil unrest within Ukraine. In Odessa alone, 3 military vehicles were set ablaze, reflecting growing dissent against the war. In Kiev, a tragic incident saw a woman self-immolate in protest against forced conscription, marking a grim milestone in the public's resistance to the ongoing conflict. Mass protests have erupted in Pavlograd and Zaporizhzhia due to power and water shortages amidst a heat wave, highlighting the dire living conditions exacerbated by the war. These protests are not just about immediate hardships, but also reflect deep-seated frustrations over corruption, high taxes, and enforced conscriptions. The anger and frustration are palpable. People are no longer willing to tolerate the severe disruptions in their daily lives caused by the war. The failure of basic services, combined with the heavy burden of conscription and corruption, is driving people to the streets in unprecedented numbers. Ukrainian authorities are struggling to manage this widespread discontent. Their efforts to address the immediate grievances often fall short, further fueling the unrest. The government's inability to provide stability and security only adds to the growing sense of hopelessness among the populace. The social fabric of Ukraine is fraying under the pressure. The protests are not just isolated incidents, they are symptomatic of a deeper malaise affecting the entire nation. As the war drags on, the public's patience wears thin, and the likelihood of more severe civil unrest increases. Social scientists and local journalists point to a myriad of root causes for the unrest. Beyond the immediate hardships, there are long-standing issues of governance, economic disparity, and a lack of trust in the political process. These factors are converging to create a volatile environment that threatens to spiral out of control. Let's connect these societal impacts to the broader geopolitical developments and the international response to the conflict. Colonel Douglas Macgregor has often emphasized the importance of geopolitical context in understanding conflict dynamics. On the international stage, former President Donald Trump's statements about lifting sanctions on Russia and ending the war have sent shockwaves through Ukraine. The appointment of J.D. Vance, who has openly criticized Ukraine's leadership, further underscores this shift. Germany and the U.S. have stated they will not intercept Russian missiles nearing the Polish-Ukrainian border, a significant decision that signals a reluctance to escalate the conflict further. Meanwhile, President Zelensky has declared intentions to target Russian military air bases, a bold move that risks severe retaliation. The international community's reaction is mixed. While some leaders call for de-escalation and peace talks, others push for more aggressive support to Ukraine. This division is creating a complex and volatile diplomatic environment where each move is carefully scrutinized and heavily debated. Geopolitical alliances are also shifting. Hungary's Viktor Orban has emphasized the need for peace negotiations, criticizing the ongoing loss of life and advocating for a resolution. These calls for peace are gaining traction, reflecting a broader fatigue with the protracted conflict and the desire for stability. The geopolitical landscape is in flux. Countries are reassessing their alliances and strategies in response to the evolving situation. The decisions made in the coming months will have long-lasting impacts on the regional and global order. Geopolitical analysts suggest that these diplomatic shifts could lead to new alliances and power structures. The realignment of international support and the pressure for negotiations may force both Russia and Ukraine to reconsider their strategy and seek a more sustainable resolution. These geopolitical maneuvers are reshaping the conflict landscape. Now let's focus on the statements from key political figures and their potential impacts on the war. Maria Zakharova has dismissed President Zelensky as ineffective, suggesting that his decisions hold no sway over Russia. Viktor Orban of Hungary has emphasized the need for negotiations, criticizing the senseless loss of life and advocating for a peaceful resolution. These statements reflect a growing fatigue and skepticism towards Ukraine's leadership and their ability to manage the conflict. The push for peace negotiations is gaining traction, underscoring the urgent need for a pragmatic approach. The public's response to these statements is telling. There's a growing realization that continued conflict only leads to more devastation and loss. The voices calling for peace and rational negotiation are becoming louder, resonating with a war-weary audience. Political analysts believe that these calls for peace are not just rhetorical, they represent a genuine shift in public sentiment and political will. The success of these negotiations could hinge on how well these sentiments are leveraged by the international community. Looking at historical precedents, it's clear that such shifts in rhetoric often precede meaningful negotiations. The current discourse suggests that both sides may be inching closer to the negotiating table, driven by the growing recognition of the unsustainable nature of the conflict. As we conclude this analysis, let's reflect on the future of the conflict and the path towards resolution. In conclusion, the recent developments from prisoner exchanges to international diplomatic shifts paint a complex picture of the conflict. The high casualty ratios and societal unrest within Ukraine signal a critical juncture. The international community's response will be pivotal in shaping the future of this war. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for more in-depth analysis and updates. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay informed on the latest developments. Until next time, stay safe and informed.